look like Aaron Jones when I never was. Now my chin like it with the angel for your brothers. Everybody won't be Richard Porter. God kill him like Alpo. Play if he wants, it's laying in the trunk. Like Lee Malvo. I feel like I'm a jack in the lounge. They gon' start to call him Elroy. Fuck his gang. Pop out on them demons like I'm Hellboy.
Killed. Give me Isaiah 14 and 21. They did the same thing to my people.
The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser focused.
America just put out a statement that if you're an American in the Middle East, you need to leave now.
If this situation, Epic Fury, was many months in the planning, as Secretary Hegseth says, why as many as Americans living in the Middle East given no escape window? No.
I'm the girl that decided to spend her 30th birthday in Dubai. And I'm coming on here very humbly, asking my president to just seize it. I'm an American taxpaying citizen. And I've now been stuck over here.
If you are calling about the crisis in the Middle East, please press 1. If not, press 2. Please do not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation at this time. There are currently no United States evacuation points.
All right, I appreciate y'all joining tonight's class. And for those of you who know, and those of you who don't, this is the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge under Commander General Yohana. Starting out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, in 1969, and teaching Blacks, Hispanic, Native Americans how to actually be the heroes of Blacks, Hispanic, Native Americans. Tonight's class, you can see, is titled White Heroes. And what is a white hero? We're going to get into that tonight. What exactly is a white hero? All right. So let me go ahead and pull everything up for us. And that's the question. The title is actually a question, even though there was no question mark. White heroes, question mark, right? So we see the mistakes of today are following what we would call heroes, white heroes, following what we would call leaders, white leaders. And the scriptures tell us who we are and who they are. But if I could, let me go ahead and pull up everything for us. I want to start off by pulling up something about Alexander the Great. Because if you look at history, the oppressors are who is called the heroes. And these just absolutely great. Some of those to name are Alexander the Great, Emperor Nero, they might not say he's a hero, and they might say that the things that he's done is detestable. But Emperor Nero is actually, one of their heroes because he was able to oppress, black people. But when you look in history, they'll say what he oppressed was Christians, but really you have Columbus. There was a video about Christopher Columbus where they want to go ahead and bring back, Christopher Columbus Day and, put away Juneteenth. He's one of their heroes. And then who else did I want to mention? Somebody by the name of David Crockett. And let me see. I'm going to read the first verse, and then I'm going to have young man Ace read it for me when he gets there. And I give you all a second to get there as well. We're going to First Maccabees. Let me see. Let me make sure we're in First Maccabees. Give me 1 second. And verse 1. And I'll read it until he gets there with us. All right. This is the book the Second Maccabees, chapter 6 and verse 1. And it says, not long after this, the king sent an old man to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympus, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in this place. So I want to highlight something real quick before we move through too quickly. It says, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem. So one of the things you'll notice is that these so-called white heroes are the ones that speak great words against the Most High. And I'm using the term hero because they're being heroic for the betterment and the worship of their people, right? So that's white hero. Young man, you with us? All right, go ahead. Make sure that mic is close to you and start back at verse 1.
The book of Second Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to not live after the laws of God.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in this time, you have the oppressors making sure that the blacks of this time, which are the Jews are black people, and these Greeks are deciding their fate on what they should serve and to turn away from God. All right. And had these people not done this, had we been left alone, had we not sinned against our God and been conquered by these people, right now there would be no white rulership. There would be no white heroes. I want to read something about Alexander the Great because this takes place during the time of the Maccabees, right? So during the time of the Maccabees, Alexander, before the Maccabees, Alexander the Great was a ruler and had oppressed God's people. Let's look at what Alexander the Great actually is. And let me just fix something real quick. Bear with me for 1 second. All right. Let me just fix that real quick. All right. So that should fix the lighting a little bit. And let me see. All right. And also get those likes up. Let me see if that works. Get those likes up, like, share, and subscribe to the video. And let's make sure that we get this message out. All right. So it says, and this is one of their heroes, Alexander the Great. Let me see. Alexander the Great is considered great because of how much of a war hero they're saying he is. And they say he never lost a battle. But let's read that one of these heroes, one of their white heroes. Let's read what's really to Alexander the Great. It says, Alexander the Great was heavily involved in the Greek tradition of same-sex relationships, most notably with his lifelong companion, Hephaestion, and the Enoch Bogus, while his intimate relationships, particularly with Hephaestion, and forgive me for butchering his name, differed from formal classical Athenian pederasty. And what pederasty is, or pederasty is the practice of a Greek or a Roman having a relationship with a young boy. These are what their heroes of old time were involved in. All right. It says, often described more as a companionship of peers. He was active in homoerotic relationships throughout his life, consistent with Macedonian and Greek norms. That's why in the scriptures, and by all intents and purposes, he's seen as a hero amongst the European world, the Western world. They teach Alexander the Great as a hero. And here you can see he's involved in things that go against God. He is one of their white heroes. We didn't learn about many black people outside of slavery when we were in history class, right? That's not what we learned about. What we learned about was the men and women that were able to oppress us. And when we learned about ourselves, all we learned about was us being in slavery and fighting for our rights in America under the oppression of the people. And my question is, if these people like Davy Crockett, Alexander the Great, Nero, and other greats, if they're white heroes, then who are the villains? Who are the people that they are supposed to defeat? It would be us. If these people are considered heroes like Christopher Columbus, who are they supposed to defeat? Who are the villains in the story of their heroism? It would be blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. But we see what type of people they actually are. And young man, if you could read and just focus on that. If you could read, let's read that from verse 1. And I want you to read from 1 to verse 3. And I'll interject here and there. Salakia? Yeah, you're going to go to 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 1. Make sure you call it out and make sure you read it loud.
Second book of Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
Not long after the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to not live after the laws of God. Verse 2, and to pollute the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympus, and that in Garism of Jupiter.
And they're sending an old man, and that's a lot of tactics that they have, is they'll send, somebody who we might respect to get us to turn away, from our laws. They'll get us to lessen our morality by sending somebody that in our eyes is one of our people. But continue. No, just from where you are.
And that in Garism of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. Verse 3.
Mm-hmm.
The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. Verse 4. For the temple was filled with riot and revelling by the Gentiles who dealt within harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places.
Right.
And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful.
So in verse 4, it says, for the temple was filled with riot and revelling by the Gentiles. It's talking about the people who don't belong there. The Gentiles can describe in the Bible Israelites, or it can describe the Greeks. In this passage, or in this verse, it's talking about the Gentiles being the Greeks. And it says that there was riot and reveling by the Gentiles who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. These people that reigned after Alexander the so-called Great, these people who are the heroes of their day for oppressing God's chosen people, they laid with harlots and had orgies and all types of unspeakable sexual acts within the places that God had us set aside for our temples. So when we look back in history, And we wonder why these people wouldn't stop something like the Epstein files. Is because there's a history over and over again. And if you're gonna tell me that Columbus was a hero, if you're gonna tell me that Alexander the Great and Davy Crockett were heroes, and we'll get into Davy Crockett and who he was, because we're reading a story about what a hero really is. Christ, a black man from the tribe of Judah, is a real life hero. He's a real life hero. And what we're seeing with their heroes is that their heroes are here to oppress us. Their heroes are here to stifle and put out the voices of the saints. Their heroes are here to defile the temples and make sure that the actual voice of the Lord doesn't go out through the land. That slavery is all over the place. Even till this day, there is a somewhat of a high profile case where the unaliver of a rapper named I think his name is Fulio. They're showing his court case, and I was going to show it, but I'm having some lagging issues with playing videos, as y'all can see in the beginning. But they were talking about keeping the person who unalived the rapper alive so he could work, because they said there's a population of older prisoners that are declining in work, and it would be better for him to be in there working, and that's the way he could give back and contribute to society. Let alone, don't build schools. Don't put out morality into the world. Don't make it to where things that are not supposed to be shown on TV are no longer shown and corrupt the minds. They rather just have you in the prison system working. And the court system is seen as some type of hero when they're exploiting Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. All right. Let me see. Do I want you to go read verse 4 and 5 for me?
Verse 4. For the temple was filled with riot and rebelling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots, and they had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. Verse 5, the altar, which was also filled with profane things, was it lawful for a man, or no, verse 6, was it lawful?
No, I just wanted you to read 5 over for me again one more time.
Verse 5, the altar was also filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth.
Right. So this is all that they have to offer. If you look at today, the rulers of the world are the ones that are wicked. Even the scriptures say that, right? There's so much going wrong with the world that is not being addressed. And it's not being addressed because the people that rule don't have a sense of morality in them. If they're lied in them the real heroism that is needed to heal the world, how come the world isn't healed? That's a question that we should ask. All right. Let me read another one of them. All right. This is some words about Emperor Nero. And we've mentioned them before, but we're going to go more in depth about these people for the sake of this class. It says, Emperor Nero is considered responsible for initiating the heavy oppression and subsequent military suppression of Jerusalem, which led to the destruction of the temple. If you know history, if you've seen any classes from ISUPK, you would know that the Jews are black. You would know that they were called nigger in Antioch. We've had that in classes before. I would love to pull it up now, but for the sake of the time of the class, research that on your own. Use the blue. Matter of fact, I might still pull it up. Give me 1 second. I might still pull it up. Give me 1 second. Young man, do me a favor. Read, because what we need to do is understand what history are, who the villains actually are, and who the actual heroes are. The heroes are going to make sure that the so-called white man, the oppressor, does not destroy the world, because there's no such thing as the cartoon Captain Planet, right? You ever heard of that? Wow. Kids don't even know what Captain Planet is. They don't. There's so much that has nothing to do with morality on TV, or this, like a shell of morality that kids don't. The young man that's reading is 11. Captain Planet, if you grew up back in if you were a kid back in the 80s, the 90s, maybe the early 2000s, you know Captain Planet's about littering, it's about, you know, people coming together, this, that, and the fourth. The message with Captain Planet, even though on the surface, it was talking about healing the earth, and all the pollution that was going on. It was really a brainwashing tool as well. And that's just a quick segment. Captain Planet was about all nations coming together and healing the world, when that's not possible. Because in order for this oppressor to be comfortable in rulership, there can't be a coming together. There has to be a sort of unspoken hierarchy, per se. So that doesn't exist, but the young man don't even know what Captain Planet is. But right now, the earth is being destroyed through so-called space exploration, through so-called garbage trucks with landfills. Do you know that when you actually recycle things, that there's an end of cycle date for those products, and most of it still goes to a landfill because they can't even recycle it? The earth is being destroyed by the very leaders of it right now. All right. But let's get back to Emperor Nero. Emperor Nero was, I believe, a Roman who led. Yeah, he was a Roman who led to the suppression of our brothers and our forefathers in the past. Emperor Nero, and you're going to notice a little something weird about these people from the past. They got something going on with them. It says Roman Emperor Nero ruled 54 to 68 AD. Married a young boy named Sporus around 66 to 67 AD. This followed after the death of his wife. Nero had the boy castrated. So this is a procedure that was done. So anytime you think that there's something new under the sun when it comes to what is that stuff called? Transgender and kids being, transformed into something that they weren't born as. That's something that even happened back before, the modern times, 60 something years after Christ had died. It says Nero had the boy castrated and married him in a public ceremony. He did this for the world to see, treating him as his deceased wife's replacement. These are the people that are lifted up and that we have to learn about as heroes in history, but we don't learn about our people. We don't have any connection that the heroes of the scriptures are actually our forefathers and our foremothers. And that's for a reason, because our image in this world is supposed to be low and their image is supposed to be high. All right. Well, what verse you at?
I'm on 7.
All right. Verse 7. Let's go.
Or no, 6.
Verse 6. All right. Let's read it.
Second Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 6. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts.
So the very thing they're calling Alexander the Great, in the scriptures it calls him Alexander the Greek. The very thing that the Lord left for us to do, the very thing that the Lord told us to do in Rome, that when Paul described in Romans 9, where he said the promises, when he said the oracles of the Lord, when he said in the giving of the law, it's saying that the predecessors of Alexander the Great, which are following what he put forth, it's saying that it was unlawful for a man to keep the Sabbath, or the ancient fasts, which are the feast days, or profess himself at all to be a Jew. These people were being Hellenized, which in the Greek time means they have to become something different. And that's what you have to become today. But don't be confused and think that if you're like them, you'll get any glory, because being like them doesn't get you any glory. Being like them doesn't get you anything. The scriptures say, do not be like the oppressor. Envy not the oppressor. And I'm paraphrasing. And do not be like the heathen. Let's read that one more time.
Verse 6. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to prevent
Ancient fasts.
or to prevent. No, it says feasts.
It does in yours?
Yeah, my
Oh,
belief.
it's KJV. It says fast. No sweat.
Or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
Right. All right. Let me see that. All right. No sweat. And let me see. Read verse 7 for me.
Verse 7. And in the day of the king's birth, every month that they were bought by bitter constraint to eat the sacrifices, and when the feast of
So what do you think that means? It says, in the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. What do you think that means?
So they're like, if I'm like correct, it should like they're like celebrating like his birthday or something and forcing the Jews to eat like things they're not supposed to.
Right. So one of the sacrifices that they had to eat in those times was pork. And let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second. Because there was something I had brought up about birthdays that I wanted to read, but the Greeks and the Romans adopted their practice of birthdays from the Egyptians, and the Egyptians celebrated their birthday every month. And this is what the Israelites didn't celebrate their birthdays. We didn't celebrate the birth of Christ. We didn't celebrate the birth of ourselves. But in this, these oppressors that are the descendant and the followers of Alexander the Great, one of their heroes, are forcing our forefathers to celebrate his birthday every month and to eat things that are abominable to the Lord. And we learn about these people as if it's something great to learn about. We learn about the Greeks and the Romans. We have terms like when in Rome, but these people, to them, are heroes. But to us, they are villains and devils. Read that one more time from the top.
Verse 7. And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were bought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices.
Right. All right, let me read something for y'all as far as birthdays, just to, give y'all a little bit. You had a comment?
Question.
What's up?
How come like they don't like the oppressors in in the like school system? How come we don't learn about like all the bad things that the so-called heroes of America do?
Right. There's a class that I taught about, and I'll bring this out again. The first reason is what's called in today's terms is called white guilt. There needs to be the so-called oppressor or the so-called white man that needs to be shown in a great light. You can't have them showing all of what happened in history in the school system because they said it would make white children feel bad. It's a psychological thing. So they'll show us a little bit about it, show us coming together, and then they'll end it with saying that the Civil War helped unite us and Abraham Lincoln really, fought for our, freedom. And they'll say Abraham Lincoln is a hero. I'm glad you brought that up. But Abraham Lincoln is quoted saying that he wouldn't have freed one slave if he didn't have to. Some hero, right? Another reason why it's not taught in the school system of what really happened in history and why they're portrayed as, great and the lies aren't really exposed is because from kindergarten to grade 12, the so-called small hat or the so-called Jewish man is inordinately in control of what is taught in the school system. So if we learn that the small hat was in charge or was pretty much the financier and the insurer of the slave ships, we're going to look at them in a different light. We're not going to see them as the victims of what Hitler did. We'll see them as just another so-called white man. That's one of the reasons why they are, or it's not taught in class. All right. So in verse 7, it says, and in the day of the king's birth, every month, they were brought by bitter constraint to eat the sacrifices. Let me read something real quick. The ancient Egyptians are credited with inventing the celebration of birthdays. They believe when the pharaoh were crowned they became gods. So their coordination day was a pretty big deal. That was their birth as a god. And then you have the Greeks and the Romans celebrating it every month for the king. Ancient Greeks borrowed the tradition, but rightfully realized that a dessert would make the celebration all the more meaningful. So they baked a moon-shaped cake to offer up to Artemis, the goddess of the moon, as tribute. And they decorated it with candles. So just a little, another jab to show you, or a cut to show you why we shouldn't celebrate birthdays. Because these people that made it common practice are the Lord's enemy. They said that they portrayed themselves as heroes in history, but we're seeing who they really are in the scriptures. All right. Continue to read. I kind of want to get through this. What time is it? Let me just monitor the time real quick.
And
All right.
for the sake of time, you want to
No, not for the sake of time. I want you to read
where I continue?
Let me see. Go to verse read where you left off in verse 7.
And when the feast of how you say his name?
Bacchus.
When the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession of Bacchus carrying ivy.
Carrying ivy. All right, verse 8.
Verse 8. Moreover, there went out a decree to neighboring cities of the heathen by the suggestion of
Ptolemy
against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices.
These people that oppress us and we think in our minds are heroes, the Lord said don't follow and do what they do. Back in the day, we had to follow them. Back in the day, we had to do whatever we were told to do or were forced to do, because unto death, you would be keeping the Lord's statutes. But some brothers went against that. That would be considered a real hero. Somebody that is writing this down, one of the scribes, somebody that's going through this and fighting against this oppression, the Maccabees, somebody who will not eat of these sacrifices and will keep what the Lord said, is an actual hero. Because if it wasn't for them doing this and listening to the Lord, it would be way harder for us to know who we are. All right. Continue to read.
Verse 9. And whoso should not confirm themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death.
Then might a man have seen the present misery. All right. Let me go to something real quick. I want to show y'all something. All right. This is one of their so-called heroes. All right, let me go to it real quick. Let me see if I can grab it. I'm going to put the first one up and I'll say who he is. This is Davy Crockett. All right. And let me read who they're saying Davy Crockett is. Matter of fact, let me get that for you. All right. Davy Crockett is considered an American folk hero, renowned as a frontiersman, soldier, and congressman who died at the Battle of Alamo. I'm going to read that one more time. Davy Crockett is considered an American folk hero. All right. But who was Davy Crockett? Who actually was Davy Crockett? Let me read who Davy Crockett actually was. All right. Davy Crockett is considered, hold on one second. Let me actually read. Let me see. Because I had actually saved where I wanted to go with it. All right. So Davy Crockett was actually a person that was fighting. And this is something that Walt Disney brought to life. Disney Studios perpetuated the lie that Davy Crockett was a hero. And we, in our minds, we believed it. But he wasn't a hero for us. He was a hero for the so-called white man. He fought at the Battle of the Alamo. Why? I'm going to read it for you. Academic research confirms, and this is about the Alamo, that slavery was a central driving cause of the Texas Revolution, including the Battle of the Alamo. So let me break it down for you. Davy Crockett was one of the people who were going against what the Mexican government had said. The Mexican government said no more slavery, and they were beginning to enforce it. So the other so-called frontiersmen and the other heroes of America said they wanted to keep slavery. And then they fought at the Battle of the Alamo. And it's saying that Davy Crockett died as a hero at the Battle of the Alamo. Well, I'm here to give you the actual truth, because there's a Times Magazine article who gives us this right here. Not only did Davy Crockett die at the Battle of the Alamo, their so-called hero, it says there is no evidence that Davy Crockett went down fighting, as John Wayne famously did in the 1960s movie. They had Davy Crockett played apparently by the great American actor John Wayne. It says, a font of misinformation. There is ample testimony from Mexican soldiers that Crockett surrendered because he's a coward. Crockett surrendered. This is their hero, and was executed. All right. Let me see if you could get me a verse. Let me get Isaiah chapter 49 and 26, because the oppressors of the children of God, the Mexicans and the blacks who fought at the Alamo and actually won that first battle, their oppressor is supposed to be taken off of this earth. And Davy Crockett, the so-called American hero, was taken off of this earth. And he didn't go out fighting in a blaze of glory. Davy Crockett was a coward who surrendered and was executed.
What was the verse?
And that was Isaiah 49 and 26. I can pull it up for you if you need. Give me 1 second. You got it? Isaiah 49 and 6. And I'll give you a second to get there with me. All right. And I'm going to read a little bit more. It says, American settlers in Texas revolted in part because the Mexican government, which had banned slavery, was tightening control and enforcing anti-slavery laws. This is what the heroes of America fought against, which had banned slavery and was tightening control and enforcing anti-slavery laws, threatening the economic foundation of the plantation focused colonists. So when Davy Crockett surrendered and was executed, the Lord wanted that to happen. Go ahead.
49:26 or
49 and 26.
Isaiah chapter 49 verse 26.
Make sure you speak into the mic, please.
And I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh.
And Salakia. I wanted that verse later. I actually wanted Isaiah. I wanted Isaiah 14 and 4. And I can get there. I can get there with you. 1 second. All right. And that's Isaiah 14 and verse 4, whenever you get it. So we have to understand that anytime, or in most cases, when you see somebody that is Esau and they're a hero in history, their main job was to destroy blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. This so-called hero has been seen as something great for years and years and years, and the general public doesn't even know what the Battle of the Alamo was actually about. It was about keeping slavery in Mexico and America. That's what it was about. So when brothers and sisters don't understand that the reason why blacks and Hispanics are no longer fighting together, they don't understand that the white heroes won. Eventually, the white heroes won, and they destroyed the saints of the Most High, which are blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Go ahead and read that verse when you got it.
Isaiah chapter 4, the book of Isaiah chapter 14 verse 4. Thou that shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased?
How has the oppressor ceased? That's something that's going to happen on a wide scale. All these heroes of the world who help run America, all these heroes of the world who help oppress us. Joe Biden is a hero because he passed that crime bill. Bill Clinton is a hero. Donald Trump is a hero for this country because they have been able to stifle and keep down the saints. They are the heroes of this wicked world in the way it is now. Go ahead, read that one more time, because this is what's going to eventually happen. Yeah, you had something to say? Read it one more time from the top.
Verse 4. That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the oppressor ceased?
Ceased.
Ceased. The golden city ceased. Verse 5.
No, that's it. You good right there. All right. Let's get back to Maccabees. All right. Because that was enough on Davy Crockett. But they put that man in Disney movies and made him seem so great. But we going back to the Maccabees. We left off at verse, I think
it was 8.
8. It was verse 8. All right, you can go down to verse 9.
Verse 9. And whoso would not conform themselves with the manners of the Gentiles should have been put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery.
Let me see that book you got. Let me just, because this is the Apocrypha, but let me, verse 6 and 10. Let me just read this real quick.
You said 9.
You
said 9.
And whosoever would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. There was something that you read that, and I'll find it the next time. But this, what I'm reading online is just it looks like a slight bit different with some of the words, but it's Tawab. It's I'll correct it if I see anything wrong, and you're the one reading from that translation, so that's the correct one. But online's a little weird. All right, let me get back to it. Give me 1 second. Because there was something I wanted to read. All right, continue, because we're going to talk a little bit about Christopher Columbus within these verses as well.
Verse 10.
Right.
For there were women brought who had circumcised their children, whom when they had openly led round about the city, the babes hanging at their breasts, they cast them down in headlong from the wall.
So, do you understand what's happening in this verse? Okay. All right. Let me get the verse that I want to read real quick. Read it one more time from the top. See if you can get it. If you can't, I'll break it down for you.
Verse 10. For there were 2 women brought who had circumcised their children.
Do you understand what's going on there?
La.
Do you know what circumcision is?
La.
Okay.
Like told them the wrong thing?
No. All right. This is Leviticus chapter 12 and verse 3. This is a law that we are supposed to keep, and this is what the Israelites are supposed to be doing. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Let me get the whole chapter real quick. Give me 1 second. All right. This is the book of Leviticus chapter 12 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed and born a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days. So it's going into certain laws. According to the days of the separation for her infirmity, shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. So this is a law that was given to us, right? And what that means is when a child is born, when a male child is born, their male member has extra skin on it. That man part has extra skin on it. And as a covenant with the Lord, he said, circumcise or remove that from the child on the 8th day, right? So that's what's supposed to happen on the 8th day. These two women, courageous heroes for keeping the Lord's, but the oppressor didn't want that to happen. All right. So that was a law that they were following. Back in Leviticus, it was told to us they're still following it, and these times being oppressed by the Greeks. Read that one more time from the top.
Verse 10. For there were two women brought who had circumcised their children, whom when they had openly led round about the city, the babes hanging at their breasts, they cast them down headlong from the wall.
So what they did was, those women have those children like this, possibly even breastfeeding, and though they were brought in front of the people for following the Lord's work, and they were thrown down, and they unalive those children because those women decided to follow the Lord and keep that covenant. All right, keep reading.
Verse 11. And others that had run together in the caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly, being discovered by Philip, were all burnt together.
What does that mean?
They were trying to keep the Sabbath, and a guy named Philip found them and burnt them
Right.
alive.
So they were trying to escape so they could keep the law, statutes, and commandments. And then when they were found, the oppressor had them burned all together because they had made a conscious to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day. They decided to keep the Sabbath. It's a shame that in this day and age, we have the ability to do whatever we want. It's fake freedom of speech, fake freedoms out here. People are, chopping off their parts, calling themselves this, calling themselves that. They're saying they have the freedom to be a furry, a dog, a cat, or whatever else weird stuff is going on. But in the time of our oppressor, when we have the freedom to profess ourselves as Jews, circumcise our kids, we don't do that. We decide to follow the oppressor, who seem to be heroes but are not. And one of the reasons why we don't understand that the oppressor is because the Pope, who made his son be painted as Christ, was a hero. I'm trying to remember the Pope's name back in that time, but he had his son painted as Christ. You can see it right here on the screen. And now Trump aligns himself with that so-called white hero, white Christ. And that image is seared in Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans' mind. And it's hard to see through the fact that these people are vessels of destruction because of that image that we have in the back of our minds. That image that is really just the mark of the beast. All right. Keep reading.
Verse 12. Now I beseech those who read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities.
Right. So read that one more time.
Verse 12. Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities.
What does that mean?
He's talking about like the people who are reading this book not to be like scared or like uncourageous about like following the law, statutes, and commandments.
Right. And if you decided to be courageous, as you put it, and still follow the laws, the statutes, and commandments against these odds, so that you would be able to pass this on to the generations that would need it, what would that make you?
A criminal or something?
No. If you are able to pass this on and do what the Lord wants you to do, so the generations that follow can have it and uphold what the Lord wants, what would that make you?
A hero.
That would make you a hero. Not oppressing the Lord's people. You're not a hero when you oppress the Lord's people. This guy right here, that's not a hero. King of the wild frontier. He is one of the devil's angels. That's who that was. He is an oppressor. And when we say, and we call the oppressor a devil, it means they are deceiving, they are lying. And as you can see, history has been taught as a lie. What would we be calling you that for if it wasn't being done to us, if we weren't receiving lies day in and day out about what happened? And then by the time the lie is corrected, is the damage is already done, and it's just seared in the minds of the children of God to where they don't know which way to go. Read that verse from the top one more time.
Verse 12, right?
Right.
Verse 12. Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that they judge those punishments not to be for our destruction, but for a chastening for our nation.
Right. So even though this stuff happened to us, even though these things that, were so terrible, it says, but that they judge those punishments not to be for our destructions. This stuff isn't to destroy us. It is to make us come together and do what's right by the Lord. Give me 1 second. I want to look up that word really quick. Chastening. All right. You ready? Because what do you think chastening means? And then I know what it means, but I want to read you the definition. Put that right there. What?
In like another word, like a synonym for punish?
No. It says that they be not discouraged for these calamities. So all the bad things that happen, the people being burned, the babies being thrown down, them being chased into the caves. It says, but that they judge those punishments not to be for our destruction, but for our chastening of our nation. What do you think that means? Because that's a heavy thing for him to write. Because no, I'm gonna let you answer first, and then I'll tell you what to compare it to. Chastening. What do you think chastening means? All right, no. In the Bible, chastening means the loving discipline, correction, and training of a believer of God. And that's a loose definition, but that's pretty close to what it means. This is for our correction. This is so we can be disciplined in the understanding that we need to come back to the Lord and never follow these people again. Look what they do when we follow the Lord. We follow them, and then we let them get so strong. When the few of us follow the Lord, they try to destroy those people. That's what it means. Chastening means the Lord's correction. You understand now? All right, no sweat. All right. And that's what's happening as far as when we went through slavery. That's what's happening as far as when we went through even the recent things like the Alamo. After we won that battle, we ended up losing. Mexico lost his land, and black people, went into slavery still after that. All right. But it is for a reason. That is so that we can come back to the Lord. That's what it's for. And even though these people seem to be heroes, they're not. All right, we're going to move on. I want you to read verse 13.
Verse 13. For it is a token of his great goodness when wicked doers are not suffered by any long time, but forthwith punished.
So don't get it confused. This devil has been ruling for a long time, but they've been punished before, and then they will ultimately be punished again. Do you still have that verse? 14 and 4. Did you save that verse?
I didn't save it, but I can go back to it.
Yeah, go back to it real quick. 14 and 4. And I'm going to read y'all something. All right. This is because we're talking about, white heroes. And Christopher Columbus, even though they said they're denouncing him, if I'm not mistaken, they recently talked about bringing back Columbus Day, right? And even if they don't, to save face because of all the stuff we found out, they're trying to act like they have a small amount of decency, but they really don't. Because Christopher Columbus would have never been considered a hero if we measured him off of what the Lord says is actually a person that is supposed to be a good man or a follower of God. All right.
I got the verse if you want me to read it.
Go ahead and make sure you speak into the mic.
the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 4, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Verse 5, the Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers.
Right. So our oppressor is going to eventually cease. People like all of the terrible people who have done these things to us, they're eventually going to cease. But right now, that punishment seems like it hasn't come fast enough, but it will. And I'll read something because I've been so, out of tune with holidays that I didn't even know this was going on. But this is an AI overview. It says President Trump officially brought back Columbus Day in his 2025 proclamation, declaring Monday, October 13th, 2025 as Columbus Day, following his 2024 campaign pledge to reverse the shift towards Indigenous Peoples Day. So he took the assailant and said, no, Christopher Columbus is a hero. He took the victims and took away their day. Our brothers who suffered and died at the hands of Christopher Columbus, our forefathers and foremothers, was shown somebody that was evil and disgusting, and then that person was shown to be a hero. You have a comment?
Question.
Go ahead.
Why was it taken? Why was like what happened to it? Like, why did they take it down?
Why they take it down in the first place?
Yeah, was it because the truth got out?
Yeah, pretty much. Let me read it for you. All right. That's what I wanted to read. All right. Let's get into it. And keep that Bible verse about the oppressor and hold it. But I want you back in Maccabees, if you could, Baba Kasha. All right. All right.
Before you start reading, where you want me in Maccabees? Before you start reading, you want me in chapter 6?
Yeah, chapter 6. And I'll tell you which verse when we get there. Now, remember what I said earlier. Davy Crockett, Christopher Columbus, Emperor Nero. Who else did I mention? Alexander the Great. All these people have a hand in oppressing God's people, and all of them are considered heroes by the oppressor. Let's read about Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus's writings, particularly his journals and letters to the Spanish crown, contain multiple references to the indigenous population as potential slaves. That's why he's a hero. He wrote back to the crown and said, I have these people that should be slaves. Let me see if I can get that picture from, yes, I have these people who should be slaves. All right. It says they should be potential slaves, servants, and subjects to be exploited. He described them as fine servants, easily subjugated, and suitable to fill the ships with gold and labor. That's why he is a hero. That's why white supremacy wants this day to be brought back. He is a white hero. President Trump officially brought back Columbus Day in 2025. Why? Because Christopher Columbus, even though he's not an American, is a white hero. And he is the one who initiated the transatlantic slave trade. All right. You ask, why was the day taken away? It says Christopher Columbus initiated the two greatest crimes in the history of the Western Hemisphere: the Atlantic slave trade, which is the transatlantic slave trade, and the American Indian genocide. He initiated these things. He is the forefather of slavery. That's why people who wanted to pretend like they had some morality and steal from black people waking up said, yo, you know what? We shouldn't have this day. But white supremacy said, to hell with that. He is a white supremacist hero. Let's get this day back up. That's why we need to stop worrying about this world. As far as when I say world, I'm talking about like a different world. Like, there's different worlds, this, that, and the fourth. You understand, like he's in his own world. You understand that terminology? That's even in the Bible. We need to stop worrying about this world and worried about our own. All right. Let me read some things that Christopher Columbus did. Christopher Columbus kidnapped a Carib woman, which is a native, and gave her to his crew members to sexually assault. Christopher Columbus said, hold on, let me see. Christopher Columbus sold a 9 and 10-year-old girl into a 9 and a 10-year-old girl into sexual slavery. He's their hero. Do you notice the things about these heroes? They're involved in homosexuality and pedophilia. They're involved in these things, but for some reason they're seen as heroes. All right. Let me get something for y'all. Let me see. Give me 1 second. And if you could, let me get back to Maccabees. Let me get verse in chapter 6. Let's read verse 12 again, because we're making good time.
The second book of Maccabees, chapter 6.
No. Yeah. Just say, yeah, go ahead. Read it again. Second Maccabees,
chapter 6, verse 12. Now I beseech those who read this book that they not be discouraged through these calamities, but that they judge those punishments not to be for our destruction,
right,
but for a chastening of our nation.
When Christopher Columbus did all these terrible things to our people, which we know are the Jews of antiquity, we need to realize this is for us to return. This is for us to get right with our God so we can rule over these so-called people and we can be the heroes and the saviors, because that's what a hero essentially is, because the Lord is going to send saviors, which are heroes, to eventually avenge our people. You smiling about something?
Yeah. You
got a comment?
No.
Okay, no sweat. All right. But let me read something for y'all. All right. This is Romans chapter 9 and verse 12, because we wonder, like, how do these people, why do they look so good? Like, they make them look so good. Like, they're lying about what happened. John Wayne playing them. Different actors, playing Davy Crockett. Different people in history being shown as great. Donald Trump seemingly being an okay people to his followers. Relax. Being a okay people to his followers. All these people who were in the Epstein files and you thought were good. Joe Biden being a seemingly good person, but he's talking like black people like a dog. How do they seem to be so good? But if you look at Romans chapter 9, and let me start at verse. I'll start at verse 9. Because this is talking about Jacob and Esau, but it's talking about the different nations that are represented by them. Jacob represents the Israelites, which are blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Esau represents the so-called oppressor, the white man, the Edomites, even including the small hats. This is Romans 9 and verse 21. Hath not the potter power over the clay? What did he make these people for? How do they look? Why are they like this? If they're meant to be evil, why did he make them? It says, no, that's not a question. It's rhetorical. Hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? There were twins in that womb. You had Jacob and Esau who were twins and they shared a womb. That's what that verse is talking about. But you have one vessel for honor and one vessel for dishonor. So when you have these people who are supposed to be heroes, but they're involved in all these things that are disgusting to the Lord, they wear that suit like it's an Armani suit. It looks good on them. And I heard Captain Zaryak break this down. It looks good on them like a suit, but when we try to put it on, it looks disgusting. It looks filthy. It doesn't fit. These people look like heroes because they were made to be disgusting. They were made to be a vessel of dishonor. And it says so in the Bible. You were at verse, what verse were you at?
I was at 12,
Verse 12. All right. Let's read.
but like past verse 12.
Yep, we're gonna read, and I'm gonna get you a little bit more on Christopher Columbus.
Now I beseech those who, you want me to go to 13?
Yes.
Verse 13. For it is a token of his great goodness when wicked doers are not suffered any long time, but forthwith punished.
For it is a token of his great goodness when wicked doers are not suffered any long time, but forthwith punished. It is a great thing when these oppressors are punished and die in their calamity. That happened with one of the heroes of the so-called oppressor of white supremacy, but it has not happened completely to their people. All right. When we think about Christopher Columbus and Trump establishing in that day, it's not because Christopher Columbus discovered America, because there are Harvard articles about how people who spoke Hebrew, actual Jews, discovered America far before Christopher Columbus. There's artifacts that predate Christopher Columbus by upwards of 1,000 and almost 2,000 years. I'll read it if you don't believe me. Let's read it. It says, and this is from the Harvard Crimson. I'll give you a little background on what the Harvard Crimson is. The Harvard Crimson is the student newspaper of Harvard University and was founded in 1873. So it may have some credibility. It says, run entirely by Harvard College undergraduates, it served for many years as the only daily newspaper in Cambridge, Massachusetts. That whole city, this used to serve, and it had an article in 1970. Let me see if I can find that article. All right. Give me 1 second. All right. And let me see if I can get, let me see. All right, you need something? No, you too wild. Go ahead, sit down. No, you too wild. You too wild. All right, so this is the Harvard Crimson article, and it says, did Hebrews discover America? So Donald Trump and the rest of the liars can't say that Christopher Columbus is a hero because he discovered America. Because I'm saying it's because he discovered transatlantic slavery. That's the reason why he's a hero. No other reason why. He didn't discover America. People had discovered it before, and there were people here. You can't discover something that's already lived in, as we always point out. I can't go to your house, and because I decide I can take advantage of you, I discover your house and I put you in slavery and take all your belongings. That's not discovering something. That's robbery. That's thievery. Should we really have celebrated Columbus Day last week? And this is when the article was written, October 22nd, 1970. And it starts off saying, should we really have celebrated Columbus Day last week? According to Brandeis professor, who says the ancient Hebrews reached America 1,300 years before Christopher Columbus. So what is he saying? He's saying, should we celebrate it? And then what else is he saying? That the Hebrews discovered America 1,300 years before Christopher Columbus. These explorers allegedly set foot in the New World around 135 AD. There was more than one boatload. Cyrus H. Gordon said last Sunday, perhaps it was a two-way affair with some colonists returning to the old world to spread the news. We do not know how long the colony lasted. I'm not going to go too far much in the article, but Christopher Columbus is not a hero. The reason why white supremacy keeps its heroes is because they love when somebody was great at putting us in slavery. They love when somebody is going to destroy people like us. They love it. St. Patrick's Day. I think St. Patrick destroyed Africans, but he's a white hero. He is a white hero. All right, let's keep reading. Let me get Second Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 14.
Second book of Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 14. For not as with any other nations, whom the Lord patiently forbeareth to punish, till they come to us with the fullness of their sins, so dealeth he with us.
What does that mean? Because we read when it said that these punishments were to chasten us. What you think that verse means?
I'm not too far off, but I think it means like for like the sins of like the other colonies and nations in so-called white heroes of America. He's like eager, the Lord is like eager to punish.
So no, that's not what it means. I'm gonna read it for you one more time. All right, we're at verse 14, correct? It says, "For not as with other nations." So the Lord isn't dealing with any other nations, right? What nation of people did the Lord deal with? The Israelites, right? It's saying, let me see. Let me see if I can actually find a precept. All right, Psalms 147 and 20. So I'll get to that. See if you can find that while I read this. Psalms 147 and 20.
What's going on?
You don't have to set that on the floor. No sweat. It says, "Now I beseech those." No, I'm sorry. We're in verse 14. This is the book of Second Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 14. "For not as with other nations, whom the Lord patiently forbeareth to punish, till they be come to the fullness of their sins, so dealeth he with us." It's saying that the Lord has never had any patience or dealings with another nation to be patient with them and deal with their sins and wait till they come back like he's dealt with us, right? So let me read that in Psalms 147 and verse 20. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 147 and 20. And don't worry about it. You can just hold 14. We'll reread it right after this. "He have not dealt so with any nation." Matter of fact, let me read up a little bit. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 147 and verse 18. "He sendeth out his word and melteth them. He causeth the wind to blow and the waters to flow. He showeth his word unto Jacob." So he showeth his words unto his people, the Israelites. "His statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord." That's what that verse is talking about. You understand now? No sweat. Let's move on. All right. Let me get verse. Matter of fact, read that verse and we'll move down. And we'll start to move through it.
Second book of Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 14.
Try to speak directly into the mic.
No,
Matter of fact, if you have to do that, you could no, not that part. Yeah, no, right there. Yeah, pull that down. Just push it down a little bit. Use your strength. That's fine enough. That's fine. All right, go ahead, read the water.
Second book of Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 14. "For not as with other nations, whom the Lord patiently forbeareth to punish,
right,
till they be come to us
to the fullness
of their sins, so dealeth he with us."
Right. So we're getting punished, but the Lord is being patient with us because he has not dealt with any other nation like that, and he only chose one people. Verse 15.
Verse 15. "Lest that, being come to the height of sin afterwards, he should take vengeance of us." Verse 16. "And therefore he never withdraweth us his mercy."
No, slow down. Let's read that good. I know the words are small in that apocrypha, but read that from the top. Verse 15.
Verse 15. "Lest that, being come to the height of sin, afterwards he should take the vengeance of us."
Right. "Lest that, being come to the height of sin, afterwards he should take vengeance of us." Verse 16. "And therefore he never withdraws his mercy from us. The Lord could have been destroyed us. All of the things and the weapons that the oppressor and these heroes of white supremacy have forced upon us, the Lord has continued to show us mercy. Even though they're trying to till this day destroy us, the Lord is still with us. Even though we have been completely in Salakia, I put the screen right in the camera, Salakia. Even though we have done such terrible things and these people have been able to rule over us, the Lord has not let us been destroyed. All right. I'm going to get us one more thing because this was messed up. I want to show y'all something. I'm going to give y'all, let's see if this is another white hero. Let me see. Give me 1 second. All right. Why would I do that? All right. So you remember 9/11, right?
I don't know.
All right. There was a man by the name of Jason Thomas. You know, he was a United States Marine, and he was talked about for his heroic measures during September 11th, 9/11. All right. And let's take a look at the face of somebody real quick. All right. So there was a movie called, I believe it was called Trade Center. All right. And this is the person who played him in the movie. His name is William Mapother. But he's considered a white hero, right? But who really did the 9/11 saving during that time in 2001? This man, the real United States Marine. The real Jason Thomas is a black man. Even when you put your life on the line, and this is him standing in the rubble of what he did. Even when you put your life on the line and you are a hero for these people, they're going to put you in a movie as somebody else, somebody white. This is Tom Cruise's first cousin that they had play this black man. They did the same thing with the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger was a black man, and he was played by a white man. The image of us is something bad. That's why they didn't let you see this in that movie Trade Center. They would rather look like the heroes. Their heroes are the actual oppressors. This is not a real hero right here. This is this man right here, Jason Thomas. All right. So remember that. Don't give yourself to this world. We need to be preparing for the next world when we rule, because it's not something that has to happen after death. We can be the heroes of today, so tomorrow we can reign. It could happen overnight, like Commandant General Yohana says. All right, let's keep reading. Go to what'd you left off? Verse 16.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. So verse 16 left off with it saying, "Yet doth he never forsake his people." Yet doth he never forsake his people. That's what the scriptures are saying. So when somebody tells you that the Israelites are done and they bring in this replacement theology, talking about everybody is going to be saved, how? We're being saved from all the white heroes of the world. We're being saved from the image and the person who posed with white Jesus and brought back Columbus Day, a superhero for white supremacy. Trump is a hero, a white hero for white supremacy. Y'all remember that. All right, let's read on. We only got a couple more verses left. Let me get a time check. All right, we good. Let's go. Yes, verse. Start at verse 17.
Verse 17. But let this that we spoken for be a warning to us,
Right.
unto us. And now will we come unto the clearing of the matter in a few words.
Right. All right, let's read. All right, so we almost done. You see how many verses is left? Let's get through it. Let's go. We about to read about a real hero to end it off. All right, let's go.
Verse 18. Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man in well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and eat swine's flesh.
Right. That's what that sacrifice that we talked about earlier. These people that oppress us were forcing us to eat swine's flesh. Continue.
Verse 19. But he choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination, spit it forth and came of his own accord to the torment.
He decided that it would be better to be tortured and to die than to go against what the Lord said. A lot of us have these people in our minds which are heroes to us, like movie stars and athletes and rappers, musicians, and all these other famous things, influencers, but they don't do the right things. They're not doing what it takes to go against the grain and be a hero. They're going with the flow for the love of money, and for the love of money is the root of all evil. So this man is showing himself to be a hero, Eleazar. Continue.
Verse 20. Verse 20.
As it behooved them to come, that are resolute to stand out against such things as are not lawful for love of life to be tasted. Verse 21, and then I'll give it right back to you. I just want to read a little bit myself, just to give you a little break. But they that had the charge of that wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision. So what you think that means? But they that had the charge of that wicked feast, the people who were in charge of forcing him to eat that swine's flesh, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring him flesh, bring flesh of his own provision. What you think that means?
If I'm correct, they knew that man,
right,
as a friend,
right,
and they still, purposefully, in knowing that he didn't do that.
So let me break it down for you, so we don't go too far off. They, like you said, he was an old friend of theirs. They took him to the side and pretty much was like, "Hey, man, just eat something that you choose. Eat some chicken, eat some beef, eat it, but make it look like you're eating the sacrifice of the king." All right. It says, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use. So it was something that he could eat, and make as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. All right. That in this doing he might be delivered from death, and for the old friendship with them find favor. So if he eats the chicken or the beef and makes it look like pork, they'll save his life. Read verse 23.
Verse 23. But he began to consider discreetly, and as became his age, and the excellency of his ancient years, and the honor of his gray head, whereon has was come, as his and his honest education from a child,
right,
or rather the holy law made and given by God.
So what that means is when it says, and his most honest education from a child, or rather the holy law made and given by God, he was brought up with morality. But what really pushed him was the fact that it would go against God, the God-given law, to do this. Continuing, therefore he answered accordingly and willed them straightways to send him to the grave. He said, have at it. Go ahead and kill me. I'm not going against the Lord. And so they, through mine hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and a moment longer, should be deceived by me. Oh, Salakia, let me reread that. And so they, through mine hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and a moment longer, should be deceived by me. And I get a stain to mine old age and make it abominable. He's been good all this time. He's not taking a stain on all the great things that he's done. He is going to follow the laws and the statutes and the commandments. That's what he's going to do. He decided to be a hero. He decided to show what is really supposed to happen because it is abominable to the Lord. Verse 26. So we're in 2 Maccabees chapter 2, or Salakia, 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 24. All right, I left off at verse Salakia. We're going to verse 26. For though for the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet should I not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead. Whether you're alive or dead, you cannot escape the Most High. The Most High, I'm going to summarize, said, don't be afraid of those who can kill the body, because the Most High can kill the body and the soul. He can kill everything about you. Or Salakia, he can destroy everything about you. He can destroy you right on this earth. And it would be something worse than death. It would be better to stand with the Lord and be a hero and be one of the saviors of your brothers and sisters than to try to save your life for a little longer or try to look good in the eyes of the oppressor. Verse 27, wherefore now manfully changing this life, I will show myself such and one as mine age requireth. He said, I'm going to show you how to be a man. Verse 28, and a hero at that, and leave a notable example to such as be young to die willingly and courageously for the honorable and holy laws. That's what that means. That's what's really being a hero. Not being a white supremacist and standing with white supremacists that only mean to bring upon the destruction. We shouldn't stand with this. We shouldn't be tricked by stories about Davy Crockett who fought for slavery. We should do what Eleazar did. He said he wanted to leave a notable example to such as be young to die willingly and courageously. And when he had said these words, immediately he went to the torment. They immediately started destroying that man, immediately. But he died a hero. He was a notable example. Verse 29, they that led him changing the goodwill, they bear him a little before into hatred, because the foresaid speeches proceeded as they thought from a desperate mind. But when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto the Lord that hath the holy knowledge, that whereas I might have been delivered from death, I now endure sore pains in body by being beaten. This is the true test of a hero right here. But in soul am well content to suffer these things, because I fear him. Pray to the Lord you have this type of courage. Pray to the Lord that you are willing to be this type of hero, even though it seems bad, even though it seems like something that's hard. Eleazar did it. He left a notable example. And thus this, in verse 31, and thus this man died, leaving his death for an example of a noble courage and a memorial of virtue, not only unto young men, but unto all his nation. All right. And that is my time for today. Remember, the ISUPK is bringing up men that are willing to give their life for the Lord's statutes and commandments, so that in times to come, we will stand and be heroes. So we are no longer oppressed by white supremacy, that men that reign over us get to look like heroes when really they are actually a part of the synagogue of Satan. With that being said, tune in for more classes this week. Lord willing, we have a food drive up in Trenton, New Jersey to go ahead and feed the homeless. And Lord willing, we'll see you in class. With that being said, that's my time. Shalom.
USA's Safe Pilot rewards safe drivers with up to 30%